Elizabeth discovers a unique connection with nature and animals, and a belief in the existence of supernatural beings. After rescuing an injured wolf that turns into the handsome Elijah, she finds herself quickly falling for him. As she learns about Elijah's secret as a werewolf, she faces a significant choice: embrace the destiny of becoming a werewolf's mate, or reject the supernatural world. Can their relationship transcend the boundaries between human and werewolf? Dive into a world of mystery and love. Subscribe now for your dose of the supernatural. 1. I sat under a tree drawing pictures of random animals. I've always been the one in my family who had a special connection with nature and animals. I've always been the one who just had a feeling that supernatural beings exist. I was called crazy a lot of times. My eyes widened as I heard the bushes move. I sat very still as a huge grey wolf limped out of the bushes. I wanted to scream, but the more I watched it, the more I realized it wasn't going to hurt me. The wolf limped over to me. I gave it a questioning look. "What's wrong?" I asked it. To my surprise, he held up his paw. I slowly reached out for it. "Ah?" I nodded my head, seeing that the wolf had a thorn in his paw. "This might hurt." I pulled the thorn, causing the wolf to whimper. I kissed his paw. "All better?" I smiled. He laid down, resting his head on my lap. My eyes widened. I remained calm. His presence soon brought me comfort. I started petting him. The sun started to go down. "Okay, sir," I said, not sure if the wolf was a boy or a girl. I pressed my lips together. "You're a boy, right?" The wolf nodded. I smiled at the fact that he could understand me. "I have to head home. See you soon," I said, walking off. I got home and all I could think about was that wolf. I sat down at my desk and started to sketch out the wolf. From the depth of his deep brown eyes to the texture of his fur. I made sure to get every detail. "Eliza, my mom called, dinner is done." I got up and headed for the dining room. "Where's Junior?" I asked, sitting down. "He's staying the night at his friend's house," my father said, looking up from his phone. "You know you should get some friends." That hurt. I pretend to be in pain. "I'll get a friend when I can find someone who is interested in the same stuff I'm interested in." "Sweetie, can't you be like other girls?" my mom said, placing my plate in front of me. I looked at her, blinking a few times. "Define what you mean by other girls," I said. "Because there are a bunch of girls out there who are interested in different things, Mom. Not all girls are into makeup and stalk cute boys. You better be happy I'm not there messing around with." "Okay, I get your point." My mom cut me off. "You know I love you even if you're a bit off." I laughed, shaking my head. Once I was finished with my dinner, I went back to my room. It was quiet, too quiet. Usually, there's some kind of noise outside, but there wasn't. I opened my curtains, looking out the window. Nothing. Strange. I mumbled to myself before getting ready for bed. Hiya, fellow Wattpad readers. Back at it again with another werewolf novel. I only hope to get better at writing these. For the heads up. This book might go on Amazon Kindle if it does good on here. Thank you for reading my book. The night went by fast. It felt like I didn't sleep for a long time. It was the one night where I got a good night's sleep. I stretched before getting up from the bed. As I headed to the kitchen, the sweet smell of breakfast filled my nose. "Good morning," I said, sitting down at the table. "Good morning, sweetheart." My mom smiled. "You up early?" "I know," I responded. "I had a good night's sleep." "That's good. Breakfast will be ready in few," she said. With that being said, I got up from the table and headed back to my room. I got the stuff I needed for a shower. The shower was quick. I got out dressed and went to the kitchen. Are you doing anything today? My dad asked me as I walked into the kitchen. Just the same as I always do. I answered, sitting down at the table. I have this friend that has a son, Dad. I cut him off. I know you're worried that I won't find someone, but I still got time. Sweetie, you're 22, and you're still living with us. My father said. Junior is 23 and still living here. I stated. Beside, apartments nowadays are expensive AF. She has a point, honey. My mom chimed in. Besides, if something would happen to us, God forbid, we are gonna need someone to take over our house for us. We put way too much money into this house. Okay, honey. My dad put his hand up, surrendering. It would still be nice for you to meet him. My dad added before going back to eating. I'll think about it, I said. After finishing my breakfast, I made me a lunch box. I didn't know how long I planned on being out. You guys later, I shouted before leaving. I went to the same spot I was at yesterday, hoping to see the wolf again. I pulled out my sketchbook and started to draw again. I was so caught up in drawing, I didn't really pay attention to the time. I sat my book down and took out my lunch. As I was eating my sandwich, the wolf from yesterday came out. He stared at me for a bit before walking over to me. Do you want some? I asked, ripping off a piece for him. He happily took the sandwich piece from my hand, eating it in one bit. I shared my sandwich with him and even gave him some water. Wanna go for a walk? I asked. I felt foolish talking to an animal that can't answer me back, but I know he understood what I was saying. I grabbed my backpack and headed onward. The wolf followed me by my side. I wasn't watching where I was going and tripped over something, scraping my knee badly. The wolf looked concerned. He nudged me with his nose as if he was telling me to get up. I did, but the pain in my knee caused me to fall back down. Calm down, boy, I'm fine. I smiled, petting him on his head. A loud growl came from his mouth. It sounded protective, like he was telling something to back off. I noticed how he went into attack mode. I looked around, not seeing anything, but of course, he can probably see and hear things better than me. As I tried standing up once more, someone jumped out at me but wasn't able to get to me. The wolf had already attacked him. He was tearing him to pieces. That's when I realized. The person was a vampire. I gasped as the vampire turned to dust. I collapsed in shock as the wolf turned into a human. I got a good look at his manhood before covering my eyes. Shift back, I squealed. Okay, but when I do, climb up onto him. We need to get you somewhere safe. His voice was deep and rich, like something out of a book. Okay, I responded back. I uncovered my eyes once I felt a wet nose hit my leg. I climbed onto the wolf. His fur was so soft I just wanted to bury myself in it. I could definitely use him as a pillow one day. Will I even see him again after this? I frowned at the thought. He stopped and I assumed that it was safe for me to get off of him, but when I went to do so he growled. So I just stayed put. He walked a little farther before letting me off. The wolf went behind a tree. Hello, I said quietly. Give me a minute, he said. His voice makes my knees weak. Okay, I answered back. The guy walked out from behind the tree fully dressed. I didn't know what to say to him. We gotta get your wound cleaned, he said, walking towards me. I stood there staring at him. He was so heavenly. Do you think you can walk? He asked. Hello. Sorry, you're just really good looking. I said. Yeah, I can walk. He nodded. I don't know how far we walked before I remembered I had a first aid kit in my backpack. I stopped hitting myself in the head. I'm so stupid. I mumbled, opening my bag. I have a first aid kit in here. He gave me an "Are you serious" look. I cleaned up my wound before we continued our walk. Wait, where are we going? I looked at him. I'm taking you home, he said, sticking his hands into his pockets. But you don't know where I live. I gave him a confused look. Says who? He smiled. Oh God, his smile. Wait, so you know where I live? How? I asked. I followed you, he admitted. My jaw dropped, but I quickly picked it back up. When? I stopped staring at him. The other day, when we first met. He smiled. By the way, my wolf really likes you. Or? I smiled. I like him too, he's so soft and fluffy. He laughed. What's your name? I asked him. Elijah, but you can call me Eli. He answered. I'm Elizabeth, but you can call me Eliza. I smiled. In that moment I felt a connection with him. Come on, your parents are probably waiting on you, he said. I pulled out my phone, seeing the time. No, they're not, I said. I usually get home at 8, it's only 6. He nodded his head. Still, it's dangerous out here. He looked around. For we talked on our way to my house. I found out that he only can communicate with his wolf through feelings. Once he's in his wolf form, he has no control over what the wolf does, but he can still feel what his wolf is feeling. I found out that he can also heal really fast. He told me to be careful of vampires, that some of them drink blood from humans. We reached my house and I said my goodbyes. Wait! I shouted, rushing towards him. Will I see you again? Maybe. He smiled. I pouted. See you around. I went onto the house and my mom was standing there smiling widely at me. Can I help you something? I said. Who was that guy? He was very handsome. My mom walked over to me. Just some guy. I smiled, walking to my room. He didn't want me walking home alone. Such a gentleman, I heard my mom say. I flopped down on my bed. I turned onto my back, staring at the ceiling. I can't believe that this whole time I wasn't crazy. I smiled at that fact. Yo! My brother walked into my room. Can I borrow your laptop? Mine is broken. No, because the last time you borrowed my shit you were watching porn in it, I said, sitting up. He groaned, leaving my room. I helped my mom set the table. As I was placing the plates down, my dad walked through the door. Hi. I greeted him. Sweetie, I'm so sorry. He sighed. I know you said you'd meet with him one day, but I need you to meet him tomorrow. Huh? I batted my eyes. His father wouldn't leave me alone about it, so I told him that you'd meet him tomorrow at the mall. He said. Dad. Why? I groaned. Just meet with him, please. My dad begged. I'll have Junior go with you. Like that's going to make a difference. I rolled my eyes. The next day around noontime, I got ready to go meet with this guy. I was hella nervous and something in my gut told me to not meet up with him, but I did anyway. Where are you supposed to meet this guy at? Junior asked. At the food court. I answered. We sat down at a table as I got a text from a random number. Sorry, I'm running late, it read. I assumed it was the guy I'm supposed to be meeting. I answered back saying it's fine. I got me something to eat during the way. He took so long that my brother ended up leaving me. I sat there alone sipping on my drink. I watched as a decent-looking guy walked up to me. "You must be Elizabeth." He smiled. "You must be Nick," he said, sitting down. "I'm sorry my dad didn't give me much information on you." I apologized awkwardly. We sat and talked for a while until we decided to go window shopping. 5. Everything was going good until he put his arm around my waist. I moved away from him, stopping in my tracks. "What are you doing?" I asked. "I mean, we are on a date, so why can't I?" I had to cut him off right there. "We don't even know each other enough to be dating. So please don't touch me." I went to walk away from him, but he grabbed my arm. "If you didn't want to date me, then why did you show up?" Nick clenched his jaw shut. I watched as his blue eyes darkened with anger. "You're hurting me." The pain of his grip was starting to set in. Nick laughed. "Let me go," I said, pushing him. I didn't see his hand coming, but I surely did felt it. The taste of my own blood coated my mouth. I placed my hand over the cheek. "Who do you think you are, you dumb bitch?" Nick walked closer to me. He was pushed away by Elijah, who looked pissed off. Elijah landed a good right hook to Nick's face. "How dare you?" He clenched his teeth. "Elijah." I grabbed his arm. "Calm down." I could tell he was trying to, but he was too heated after seeing me get hit. "Eliza." I heard my brother call out to me. He looked down to see Nick laying on the floor. "I thought I told you to stay away from my sister." Junior kneels down. "This will be your very last warning." I was very curious about what my brother was talking about, but my main concern was getting Elijah out of here. "Let's go before the mall security gets here," I said. As we were walking out, my brother looked at me. "Who's he?" he asked. "A friend," I stated. "Oh, how I want him to be more than my friend. I'm Elijah, your sister, and I met a couple days ago," Elijah explained. Junior looked Elijah up and down. He nodded in approval. "Don't do my sister wrong." Junior patted Elijah's shoulder. "Ah, what did you mean back there?" I asked. "You told him that was his last warning. Remember when we went to the pool, and was only there for like an hour?" Junior said. "That was because I caught him taking pictures of you. I deleted them and smashed his phone. There was also a time where when I came to pick you up from work, he was taking a video of you through the window." "That creep," I mumbled. How did he know who? My eyes widened. Is he stalking me? I noticed a change in Elijah. He was calm, but now he's tense. 6. I gave his arm a light squeeze. He seemed to have calmed down a bit. I wanted to ask why he was getting so upset, but I didn't want to in front of my brother. "So what do y'all wanna eat?" I asked. "Actually, I'm gonna go finish shopping. Obviously somewhere else," Junior said. "Oh yeah, your 4-year anniversary with Bella is coming up." I smiled. "I think you should propose to her." "We are not ready for that." Junior shook his head. "A promise ring," Elijah chimed in. "A promise that you will always be with her, and that one day you two will get married." "Oh, that's a great idea." My eyes lit up. "She'll love it." "I'll put that into consideration," Junior said. "See ya later, Eliza." Junior walked off, leaving me and Elijah alone. I pulled away from him, staring him down. "What?" He gave me a confused look. "You need to learn how to control yourself. You can't just wolf out in public like that." I crossed my arms. "If someone would have, were you worried about me?" He smirked. "Yes," I said. Very. I'm sorry. He said, ruffling my hair. Hey, don't do that. I swatted his hand away, fixing my hair. I was trying to hold it back, but when I saw that he made you bleed, I lost it. Elijah said, sticking his hands into his pockets. I'm okay. I smiled. Elijah nodded his head. Let's go eat. I smiled. We went to a hoagie shop. My taste buds were so satisfied when I bit into the hoagie that I moaned quietly. Elijah looked up at me. His eyes turned a deep brown. Don't do that again, he said, as if he was warning me. I nodded my head, afraid of what might happen if I did it again. Do you have a family? I questioned him. He nodded his head. Sorry. I snipped on my drink. 4. Elijah arched his eyebrow. You seem like you don't want to talk about them. I said. It's not that. He smiled. It's just, me and my family aren't on good terms at the moment. Oh, why? I was curious at this point. I rather not talk about it. He sighed. Okay. I nodded my head. What do you want to talk about? You? Elijah said without hesitation. Have you had a boyfriend? Do you have a boyfriend? Did you have your first kiss yet? What kind of guys are you interested in? What's your favorite color and food? What do you do for a living? Okay. I had to cut him off. I never had a boyfriend or even a first kiss. Sadly. I noticed how satisfied Elijah looked when I said that. I like a guy who can make me laugh, someone who will be there for me. A guy who will love me for me. I smiled sadly. My favorite color is yellow, and my favorite food is any chicken dish. I'm an art teacher. I own my own art studio. My eyes widened. I have an art class tomorrow. I smiled. You should be a model for my students. You want me to stand there doing nothing while people I don't know draw me. He arched his brow. Yeah. I nodded. Please. I pulled out my puppy dog face. I wasn't going to stop until he said yes. Okay, I give in. Elijah laughed. What time? 10 a.m. I smiled widely. Wear something casual. All right. He nodded. His phone dinged in his pocket. When Elijah looked at it, he looked frustrated after reading what I assumed was a text. I have to go. He sighed. You'll be okay alone, right? Yes. I nodded my head, a little sad that he's leaving me. See you tomorrow. Elijah stood, leaving. 7. I got my studio early to straighten it up. It was a lot to clean up. By the time I was done, it was 10 a.m. I heard the bell on the door chime. I walked out into the front. Elijah was standing there looking around. Hi. I smiled widely. I'm so happy you actually came. You thought I wasn't going to come. He arched his brow. Yeah. I mumbled. I'll always come if you ask me to. He smiled. You have a radiant smile. I said, walking to him. Thank you. I think. He said, not sure how to respond. I giggled. You're not used to compliments, are you? I asked. No, not really. Elijah answered. Class starts at 10:30. I said. Mind helping me set up? Sure. He shrugged his shoulders. Once we were done setting up, we were able to rest for a few. How long have you been an art teacher? Elijah asked. 2, almost 3 years. I replied. And you're 22? Elijah questioned. I nodded my head. The doorbell chimed, causing us to look over. "Welcome." I smiled. "We'll start once I know everyone is here." "Okay," they all said. I watched them as they took their seats. I could hear their whispers about Elijah, so I knew he could hear them too. "I bet it's her boyfriend," one said. I started choking on air after hearing that. "Are you okay?" Elijah quickly asked, rubbing my back. He leaned closer to me. "Did what they say startle you?" I looked at him to see him smirking. "Miss Taylor." Someone called out for me. "Are you two, dating?" they asked. "No," I said. "I thought we were." Elijah crossed his arms. I raised my brows at him. "Can you stop?" I slapped his arm playfully. The rest of the class piled in. "Okay, class." I stood in front of them. "Today you will be drawing Mr. Elijah Wolf," he said. "Mr. Elijah Wolf," I continued. "So handsome." The girls in my class gushed. "Thank you." He flashed them a smile. As they were drawing him, I decided to grade their homework. Finishing up with the grading, I stood walking around the class to check out their drawings. Seeing them drawing made me want to draw, so I got my sketchbook and staring to sketch him out. From his sharp jawline to the veins in his arms, I got every last detail. I looked up to see him staring at me with lustful eyes. I stood clearing my throat. "How many of you are done?" I asked. "Me?" I looked to see Megan's hand in the air. I made my way over to her. Her sketch of him was pretty good. It lacked some detail, but it was good. "Not bad, Meg." I smiled. "Keep it up." One by one they all finished. "Tomorrow we will be going a little field trip." I smiled. "Do we have to pay?" a student asked. "My parents are struggling with money." "No, it's completely free. I'm paying for everything," I answered. "Will Mr. Wolf be accompany us?" Meg asked. "No," he said. "I'm actually busy tomorrow." I gave him a curious look. "Okay, class is dismissed." I clapped my hands. "See you all tomorrow. Wear sneakers." I turned around facing Elijah. "I would like it if you could come with, but if you can't, that's fine." I smiled. "Don't worry." He smirked. "I'll be watching over you, princess." His nickname for me made the butterflies in my stomach flutter. Before he left me alone, he helped me out everything away. I stayed late planning for tomorrow. 8. Everyone here?" I asked, counting heads before we loaded up into the van. We listened to calming music on the way to our destination. "Where are you going?" a student asked. "You'll see." I smiled. Once we reached our destination, I was taken back on how beautiful the place was. "Why are we here?" I looked to see who said that. "Your assignment is to draw Mother Nature." I smiled. What's not a better to do that than within nature itself? We unloaded the van and set up a table where we'd be eating. "Don't go far," I said. Hours passed and one by one they all came by to the site. "Where's Megan?" I asked, looking around. I quickly pulled out my phone, dialing her number, but she didn't answer. "You all stay here," I said. "Keep a lookout for her." I rushed into the woods, not sure which way she went. Megan. I called out for her. I heard a blood-curdling scream for help. I took off towards the sound. I know it wasn't the brightest idea, but I will not let a child die on my watch. I ran, but came to halt when I saw a big grey wolf stalking towards Megan. I picked up a stick, throwing it at the wolf. "Shoo!" I shouted. "Get out of here." He growled, stalking towards me now, but suddenly stopped. He didn't seem interested in me anymore. He sprinted into the woods, but before he disappeared he gave me one last look. I knew he was werewolf like Elijah. I ran over to Megan. "Are you okay?" I asked, searching her body for any wounds. "I'm fine," she mumbled. "We have werewolves in town. We have to warn people." I simply nodded my head. This is not good, I thought. After eating, I let my students finish their drawing before we headed back. "There will be not class tomorrow," I said. "Please everyone get rest." I closed up my building and was bumped into. "Oh, I'm so sorry," he said. Something about him was familiar. "It's okay," I said, heading to my car 9. I got home, undressed, showered, got into some comfy clothes when I got a text from Elijah. "Eli, can we meet up?" "Eliza, really?" "I just got comfortable in my bed." "Eli, then I'll come to you." "Eliza, hold on, let me put on something decent." "Eli, what are you wearing?" I looked down at myself in a tank top with no bra on and booty shorts. "Eliza, clothes." "Eli, MHM." My face heated up. I dressed in something more decent. "Eliza, send me the location." "A park." I mumbled to myself. It wasn't a far drive, but it was far enough for me to complain about being away from my bed. "What's so important that you called me out here?" I complained. "I missed you." He smiled. I rolled my eyes. "You could have FaceTimed me," I whined. "It's not the same as seeing you in person." He moved closer. I backed up nervously. He grabbed my hand, pulling me closer. He sniffed me. I gave him a confused look. "Have you came across another wolf?" he asked. "How did you?" "His scent is there but faint." "Like he didn't approach you, but he was close enough to you," Elijah said. I nodded my head. "Listen to me, Eliza, stay away from wolves," he said, his eyes softened up. Elijah pulled out a watch and put it on my wrist. "This will beep if you come close to a werewolf." He sighed. "What's going on?" I asked him. "Now that they know about you, they'll come looking for you." He sighed, frustratedly. I couldn't help but feel like I've done something wrong. I put my head down, looking at my shoes. "I'm sorry," I mumbled. "You did nothing wrong." He cupped his face. "I'm just worried." He smiled. "I'm probably just overreacting." "I hope so," I mumbled. "Have you yet?" he asked. "No." I shook my head. "Good." He grabbed my hand. I planned a little picnic. We went to his truck, and on the back of his truck was the picnic setup. I smiled widely. "I've always wanted to do this," I gushed. Elijah hopped up onto his car, then offered his hand to him. With one pull I was up, but also in his arms. I could hear his heart beating fast. I pulled away from sitting down. "If you find something you don't like, you don't have to eat it," he said. I nodded my head, ready to dig in. We ate and talked. I learned more about him. How his mom and brother are trying to force him to take over as alpha. He told me that his dad is deathly sick. I couldn't help but feel sorry, but I knew he didn't want my pity. I told him more about me. How I love nature and animals. How I would love to travel. I told him about how I don't have any friends, because everyone I came across doesn't like the things I do. He got mad when I told him that I was bullied in school. "What would be the first place you'd travel to?" he asked. "South Korea." I smiled. I would love to see their historical buildings. Do werewolves have mates? I asked. He coughed a few times before looking at me. Yes, we do. He responded. Have you found yours? I asked. Yes. I nodded. A pain struck my heart. It hurt seeing that he already had someone. Could I be falling for him? 10. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing. I shook my head. I'm just getting sleepy. I think I should head home. I hopped off the truck. See you later. I gave him a fake smile and walked to my car. I could tell that he knew something was bothering me. I drove home in silence. I didn't greet my parents who were on the couch. So I knew my mom was going to come into my room. I flopped down on my bed, letting out a huge sigh. I grabbed my pillow screaming into it. There was a knock, then the door opened. Sweetie, what's wrong? My mom asked. The guy I like has someone else. I whined. Oh, sweetie. She walked over to him. There's plenty of fish in the sea. She rubbed my back. I don't want other fish. I want him. I mumbled. That's when I realized I was falling for him. I wanted him to be mine. My mom sighed, holding me in her arms. If it's meant for you two to be together, then God will make a way, she said, sweetly. I nodded my head. I'm going to bed. I yawned. The next day I just laid in bed until noontime. I skipped breakfast and barely made it to lunch. Eliza. My mom shook her head. You gotta pull yourself out of it. How, Mom? I wanted to cry. This never happened to me before. I know, sweetie. My mom gave me a sad look. I took a deep breath. After lunch, I decided to go out. As I was out and about, I got a text from Elijah asking me to meet up with him at the mall. I agreed only because I wanted to see him. Even though he has someone else, I can't stop my feelings for him. As I was heading to the place where he told me to meet him at, I saw him smiling with another girl. My heart dropped into my stomach as he kissed her cheek and hugged her. I turned on my heel and started walking away. Tears trickled down my face. The more I wiped them away, the more tears would fall. Eliza. I heard Elijah call out for him. I wanted to keep walking, but my feet stopped. I wiped my tears away, but there was no use. Eliza. He caught up with him. The smile on his face disappeared. What's wrong? He said, worriedly. Nothing, I just got bad news. I sniffed. Nothing to worry about. I tried to make that lie believable. Okay. He nodded. I wanted you to meet. I think I should go home. I held back my tears. I'm too emotional right now. Oh yeah. He said, sadly. As I was walking to my car, the bracelet he gave me started beeping. I looked around, but no one seems out of the ordinary. I started walking again, when two tall guys walked up to me. You smell just like. One said, reaching for my face. I backed up, slapping his hand away. Feisty. He smiled. I like that. Oh, he hasn't marked you. The other said. I swallowed the lump in my throat. What do you want? I asked. You? The guy smirked. You're his weakness. The other smiled. You two must be mistaken. I sighed. I hope you find the person you're looking for. I turned on my heel and took off, running towards the way I came from, hoping that Elijah would be near. Hey! They shouted. I didn't turn back, looking because I knew they were chasing me. I saw Elijah and ran right for him. I grabbed his shirt, hiding behind him. He looked confused until he sensed them. You too? He growled. Well, they both said. You've been hard to find, brother. One said. Brother? I mumbled. He didn't tell you about us. How rude. The other said. Alec, Pierce. Leave? Elijah clenched his jaw shut. You run fast for a human. One of the brothers said. Come back and take the place of Alpha, and we'll leave her alone. One warned Elijah. You're going to leave her alone regardless. Elijah's eyes grew darker. The two didn't say anything, they just walked away. I didn't realize I was holding on too tightly until he cleared his throat. 11 This isn't good. He said. Huh? I glanced up at him. Elijah pinched the bridge of his nose. Be careful of your surroundings when the bracelet beeps run. Elijah said with a stern tone. They were trying to kidnap me, weren't they? I asked. Elijah nodded his head. They were going to use you to get to me. He said. I started laughing. Why? I'm not important to you. I shook my head. What makes you think that? He arched his brow. You already have a mate, shouldn't they be after her? I said. Elijah kept quiet. He ran his hand through his thick head of hair. Unless you don't care about your mate. I said. Listen, don't let me get in the way of you and your mate. I patted his shoulder. Matter of fact, you should go be with her. I smiled sadly, but expecting the fact that I can't have him. He nodded his head. CYA. He said. He turned around but then stopped. What are you doing? Go to her and make sure she's safe. I gave him a push. Okay. He said, walking away. I sighed. As long as he's happy. I walked out to my car ready to get in when a crying child walked up to me. I can't find my mommy. She cried. Okay, sweetie. I said, bending over. I saw reached for her hand, someone grabbed me, throwing me into the back of my car. They snatched my keys and hopped in. What the heck? I screamed, seeing that it was one of Elijah's brothers. Are you kidding me? Alec and Pierce. I looked to see a lady older than me. What a second. That's the girl who was with Elijah. Elijah will kill you both if you keep messing with her. She shook her head. And how dare you use my baby to try and kidnap her? I know for a fact that if we take her, he'll come home. Alec said. Excuse me. I pushed my way out of the car. I grabbed the with Alec or Pierce, I don't which one, but I pulled them out of my car. I'm very tired of being messed with. I huffed. Leave me alone. If Elijah wanted to go back, he would have already. I shouted. You guys pestering him isn't going to make him come back. It's just going to piss him off. Miss? One of them put his hand up, as a way to try and tell me to be quiet. You got it all wrong. We want to come back not only to take over as Alpha, to see his dad before he passes. He told me that his dad was deathly sick. I said. With him knowing that, don't you think he would have come back if wanted to? You don't know our brother. The other one said. He's stubborn. Our father kicked Elijah out over some petty reason. Since Elijah is the oldest, he takes over as Alpha. The lady said. He's not going to come back unless our father has an apology for him. I looked between the three of them. You can help us. She smiled. Convince Elijah to come home. Now that I think about it, they are not bad at all. They just want their family reunited before their father dies. I'll try. I sighed. But I'm not promising anything. Thank you. She smiled. Elijah mentioned you're beautiful. He wasn't lying. I felt my face heat up from the compliment. Thank you. I smiled widely. Come on boys, let's get back home, she said, picking up the child. I sat in my car processing everything that just happened. 12 that night I laid in bed. Thoughts running through my head, I couldn't get any sleep. Before I knew it, the sun was shining through my window. I groaned, covering my face with a pillow. As I felt myself slip into a deep sleep, my phone rang. I groaned, putting it on silent. Anyone know what's wrong with Eliza? Mrs. Taylor, Elizabeth's mom, asked the family. Her brother shook his head. She hasn't been out of her room yet. She sighed. This isn't like her. I woke up to me rolling out of the bed. Junior. She looked at her son. Go talk to her, see what's bugging her. Why me? He complained. Because you two are close. She crossed her arms. I was still laying there on the floor when the door opened. Something is wrong with you, Junior said, sitting down next to me. What's wrong? I sat up, leaning my head on his shoulder. The guy I like, well, I think I like, has someone else already. I sighed. Is it the guy I met the other day? He asked. I nodded my head, sighing. I never saw you like this, he said. It worries me. What do I do? My eyes began to tear up. Get over him, Junior answered. If only it was that simple. I mumbled. Your feelings for him are fresh, my brother stated. You'll get over him in no time. How about I introduce you to some of my friends? Ew. I laughed. Oh, come on, I have one friend that loves art, Junior said. Go on, I said as he got my attention. He's looking for a job, and I think he'd perfect for you, Junior added. I guess I'll give him a chance. I smiled. Good, because he's coming over, my brother said. My eyes widened. I can't let his friend see me like this. I stood quickly. Get out, I have to get ready, I said. Yeah. Junior stood, heading for the door. You might want to straighten up your room too. Get out, I shouted. I quickly hopped into the shower, making sure I smelled like vanilla and honey. I fell in love with that combination years ago. Once I was done with the shower, I got dressed and styled my hair. After I was done with me, I started on my room. It was kinda messy. By the time I was done with my room, there was a knock at the door. I went downstairs, shocking my parents. What, I can't look like shit when one of Junior's friends is coming over. I smiled, tucking hair behind my ear. My mom just shook her head, turning back to what she was doing. The door opened and I immediately knew that he wasn't human. He was one of them. A werewolf. The bracelet Elijah gave me started beeping. He looked at me, then the bracelet. I knew that he knew. I smiled, ignoring the bracelet. The beeping slowly stopped. Eric, this is my sister Elizabeth, Junior said. The one I told you about. The artist. He smiled. I nodded my head. That's me. I smiled. I would love to see some of your work, he said. Also, your brother said something about you owning an art studio where you teach art. Yes, I do. I nodded. The day went by slowly. Eric and talked about art as he played on the PS4 with my brother. Is Junior's name really Junior? Eric whispered. No, I answered. He has the same name as our dad, but Junior doesn't like it, so he goes by Junior. Makes sense. Eric nodded. Can I get your number? I have to leave soon and I would love to get to know you some more. Sure. I smiled. After exchanging numbers, he stayed for a few before leaving. That's when I headed back to my room. I nearly screamed when I saw Eli laying on my bed. "How long have you been in here?" I asked, closing my door. He held up my phone. "You would know if you had your phone on you." He sat up. "Tell me, Elizabeth." Elijah got up and stalked towards me. I backed up until I was against the door. "Why have you been ignoring me?" His face was inches away from mine. I knew he could hear my heart beating. "I don't like how you smell like him," he growled. His growl sent chills down my back. 13. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Why does that matter to you?" I pushed him away. "Don't you a mate you should be with right now?" "That mate is you, dummy," Elijah wanted to say. Elijah sighed deeply. "I want her to fall in love with me before I tell her," Elijah thought. He ran his hand through his thick black hair. "Please promise me that you'll." "I can't promise that." I cut him off, knowing what he was going to say. "Eliza." He stepped towards me. "What?" I raised my brows at him. "Can't you please just—" "No," I said firmly, moving away from him. "Fine." He shook his head, leaving the way he came in. I watched as he jumped out of the window. I sat on the bed, letting out a frustrated sigh. He has a mate. Why is he so concerned about me? I thought. I hopped in the shower before going to sleep. Where he laid, it smelled just like him. I wanted to bury myself in his scent. The warm scent of nature. I sighed, forcing myself to sleep. Weeks have passed and I haven't seen Elijah anywhere. No calls or texts. Even when I text him or call. No response. "What you thinking about?" Eric said, snapping me out of my thoughts. "Nothing." I lied. "If you don't want to tell me, I respect that." He nodded. "The students should be here soon." I stood. "What are we learning today?" he asked. "Watercolors." I answered. "I'm going to have them paint with watercolors." I never had them do watercolors before, only because I'm not a fan of it, but for them, it might be different. Time went by fast, and before I knew it, it was time for them to leave. I gave them an assignment before leaving. "Hungry?" Eric asked. "Yeah." I nodded, grabbing my stuff. "Where do you want to eat?" he asked. "It's all on me." I smiled. "How about KFC?" I said. Which just happened to be around the corner. My mind went back to Elijah. Is he okay? Was he injured? Did he decide to be with his mate? Will I ever see him again? Eric held the door open for me. I smiled at his kind gesture. We ordered our food and sat down at a table near the window. "You know?" he asked. "Know what?" I looked over at him. "About me." He then said. "Being one of them." I said. "Yeah. And you're not scared?" he questioned. "You don't seem like a threat." I stood, hearing our number being called. "So you're not bothered by it?" he asked. "Why would I be?" I asked, sipping on my drink. "The rumors people tell about us," he said. "Please stop." I sighed. "I don't want to talk about werewolves." "Why not?" Eric asked. "They are all around us." I looked around. None of them seem like a werewolf. "You won't know if they are one or not," Eric said. "Only our kind can tell." "Can werewolves have a human mate?" I blurted out. Eric smiled with a chuckle. "Yes, we can," he answered. "It's more common than you think." I wish Elijah was my mate. I sighed. Why the long face? Eric asked. Nothing, I said with a fake smile. We finished eating, then went out separate ways. I flopped on my bed right when I got into my room. I grabbed a pillow, screaming into it. Why is Elijah ignoring me? 14. I laid in bed staring out my window. I couldn't help but feel like someone was staring at my window. This wasn't the first time it had happened. I couldn't see who was there because it was dark. I pressed my lips together and closed my curtains. I downstairs to find my parents cuddle up on the couch watching TV. I grabbed myself something to eat, then joined them in the living. Sweetie. My mom looked at me. I haven't seen handsome boy around. Did something happen between you two? I nodded my head. We got into an argument. I haven't seen him since. I sighed. What was the argument about? My dad asked. He has someone, but he doesn't like me around other guys. I pulled my knees to my chest. I must have bad luck when it comes to men. Well, what about Eric? My mom smiled. He's a nice person, but... I sighed. I mean, I guess I could give him a chance. Even though my heart wants Elijah. I finished eating and sat there watching the show before getting sleepy. I made my way to my room to see Elijah laying on the bed. I quickly shut the door. Anger struck me, but see the recent wounds on him softened my heart. I'm happy you're okay. He smiled. His smile. I missed his smile. Listen. He sat up, wincing at the pain. You're in danger. What? I said, confused. I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd freak out, because we barely know each other but Elizabeth. He paused. The way my name rolled off his tongue made me want to jump on him. You're my mate, he said. It was like time froze. The room went black and I woke up on my bed. Elijah was sitting next to me, worried. I see you didn't take the news very well. He sighed. That's why I didn't want to tell you. I don't know what to say. I mumbled. There's not much to say. He sighed. Eliza, my father found out that you're human. Huh? My eyes widened. He wanted my mate to be a werewolf. Elijah clenched his jaw shut. He's coming for you. I'm sure of it. Eli. I moved closer to him. With a smile on my face, I slapped him as hard as my weak arms would let me. Why did you disappear if I was your mate? I shouted, not caring if my family heard. I was worried shitless. Elijah chuckled. Baby girl. He cupped my face. I never left. My face went blank. Those times where I felt someone watching me. It was him. Sweetie. I heard my mom say. Sorry for being loud, I'm just reading YNPOV book. I said loud enough so that she could hear me. Okay, sweetie. I heard her footsteps fade away. I turned my attention back to Elijah. What do you mean you never left me? I said with a pout. Even though you couldn't see me, I was still watching over you. He admitted. I had to clear up some shit with my dad, but it only made it worse. That's why you said I might be in trouble? I asked. Elijah nodded his head. So the girl you were referring to about being your mate was me? I had to clarify. Yep. He smiled. So I was jealous over my own self. I laughed. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. He yawned. Let's get some sleep. I watched as he made himself comfortable. He looked over at me and patted the area next to me. I smiled, crawling next to him. The warmth of his body was welcoming. Don't miss the next chapter of this enthralling tale. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell.